Hi, welcome to today's webinar. Thanks for joining us in this webinar titled, What Can a Few Beer-Brewing Monks Teach Us About Non-Profit Fundraising? We've got people joining us from all over the country today, so thank you very much for joining us. If you want to tell us where you're from, you can just type in that little chat box and tell us what
Darren,
city
before you
you're from.
go on too much further, we've only got a black screen.
Okay, let me try and fix that.
Yep.
So what can you
Oh,
see now? You should see a picture of
I
some
can.
monks.
Yes, can see that.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, if you can just find that chat box on the right-hand side on your screen somewhere, just type in where you're from and just to check everything's working. So we've got some people from Sydney. We've got some people from Queensland, from Brisbane, from Adelaide, from Perth. Fantastic. We've got people from all over the place. Wonderful. A couple from Perth. Great. Wonderful to have you on board. Thanks for that. Well, the title of the webinar is What Can a Few Beer Brewing Monks Teach Us About Non-Profit Fundraising? Now, apart from being an interesting and fun title to capture your attention, when I first read about these monks, I was impressed with their innovative spirit in addressing an age-old problem. Now, I have not met a non-profit fundraiser or a non-profit marketer who has said that they have enough resources. But these innovative, forward-thinking Abbots have an alternative. They know how to create sustainable income streams to support the great work that's happening in their community and beyond. It's gutsy, it's innovative, and it provides us with a model to examine and maybe adapt. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself at the moment, so let me introduce myself and the company that I work for. Well, my name is Darren Ortclass, and I work for the learning community as a brand and marketing strategist. And today I've also got one of my business partners with me, Karen Sell. Hello, Karen.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today, Karen. Karen's had quite a lot of experience in non-profits and is currently on the board of an inner city non-profit in Sydney and works a bit with non-profits. But Karen's experience lies more in the HR, the professional development, and the governance side of things. So she's going to be sitting on this webinar with me and asking me questions along the way to keep it a little bit more interactive, but asking questions from her perspective of sitting on a board of a non-profit in regards to some of the information that I'm going to present to you today. Now, I'm running all the technology myself as well as presenting today. So if you could keep your questions to the end, that would be great. By all means, type your questions in that little chat box, but it's most likely I won't be able to get to look at them until the Q&A time a little bit down the track. So by all means, please type your questions away, and if I can see it, if I get the chance with all the other things going on my screen, and it's appropriate, I'll address it there. Otherwise, we'll address it towards the end when we have the Q&A time. But I do have a few little friends helping me out today. I've got a few little critters and a few little birds, and the first thing that these critters want to help me to do is to explain our elevator pitch. Now, this first guy here is a little angry. He's a little frustrated because he lives in a world that is noisy and cluttered and he can't get noticed. But the second guy, he's a little bit happier. He's more positive because he knows that in order to get noticed, you have to work smarter and differently. And essentially, that's what we do as a business. We help businesses, non-profits, and training organizations get smart and different in two key areas: with your branding and marketing, and with your people, your HR, your professional development. And today we're delving into the brand and marketing strategy side of things, and in particular into looking at fundraising. Now, there are some who think that fundraising is a completely separate activity to branding and marketing. But I believe that all three work together. In my opinion, successful fundraising flows out of a robust brand and marketing strategy. In fact, I don't believe that you can actually be successful long term in fundraising without a clear brand and marketing strategy. So I believe that fundraising actually finds its place within the context of branding and marketing. Now, there's a lot of confusion when it comes to what branding and marketing actually is, what it means. So let me give you my definition. There's lots of definitions out there. Let you give you my definition so we're on the same page. So branding is everything you do that shapes people's perceptions. Yep, it includes all your visual design, your logo, your website, but it can't be reduced to that. A lot of people talk about branding as your visual design assets. It can't be reduced to that. Everything you do as an organization shapes how people perceive and feel about your brand. The way you answer the phone, your customer service, your invoicing, your communications, your design. Everything you do is a branding activity. It's ongoing and involves everyone in your organization. So branding is about shaping perceptions. Marketing, on the other hand, is everything you do that shapes people's actions. And it finds itself in place in the context of a brand strategy. And it's totally concerned with influencing people's behavior to do what you'd like them to do, whether that's join, donate, buy, share, and so on. Branding and marketing work together like two blades on a pair of scissors. You actually need both blades working to cut, and perception influences action. So, with this definition, it's clear how this connects with fundraising activity because fundraising is basically an exercise in influencing how people feel about a cause and, as a response, take appropriate action to donate. Today, however, I want to explore fundraising from a slightly different angle that still finds itself in the context of branding and marketing, but has a slightly different angle. And it starts with a problem. Simply stated, the problem is that there is too much noise and clutter competing for people's attention. It's hard to get noticed in a noisy and competitive world. And if you can't get noticed, it's almost impossible to raise financial support. And all this noise, all this information flows through the same funnel. Today, personal messages, advertisements, non-profit campaigns, they all compete in the same space, especially when it comes to social media and email. So no longer is it non-profit versus non-profit. It's non-profit versus my mum just had a Cajun beef salad and my sister just ran 10 kilometres and I should get my business cards printed by Moo and build my website with Wix and sponsor a child through World Vision. So it's companies, family, friends, non-profits, all in the same feed, all competing for our attention. And in addition to the avalanche of marketing messages that's dumped on us every day, there are more causes, more non-profits competing for the same resource pool. Just look around at how many non-profits are here today that weren't here just 5 years ago. And did you know that there are 700,000 non-profits in Australia? 700,000, many competing for your attention. And while our giving has increased, it's not growing fast enough to keep up with the demand. Then if you add in the rise in crowdfunding projects, where people fund all sorts of projects, a lot of which are actually not non-profit ventures, such as musicians wanting to record a new album, which is massive, it's getting pretty hard to convince people to donate to your cause because there's lots of options. And people like new things. And there are a lot of new things to capture people's imaginations and commitment. And people have limited time, limited money, and all this is making it really hard to build loyalty and commitment in this context. So it's no wonder that many experts in non-profit fundraising are suggesting to diversify your revenue streams and avoid over-reliance on any one income source. But there is also a different school of thought, which suggests a focus on one main income source. And there is research to prove that the 100 largest nonprofits in America have this in common. They all have one main income source. But today I want to throw something else into the conversation, and this is where the Beer-Brewing Monks come in. So let me tell you their story. In 1881, a handful of French Trappist monks set up camp in the Netherlands. They acquired a reasonable sized patch of land with a few farmhouses and a sheep barn. Then a few years later, in 1884, they converted that sheep barn that you see there in the picture. They converted that sheep barn into an abbey. And then in the same year, the abbey opened a brewery and started brewing ale inside the monastery, inside that building you see, in order to finance the monastery and contribute to charitable causes. The two key reasons for starting this commercial enterprise was to be self-sufficient and to be charitable. They were their two motivating factors, their two driving forces, to be self-sufficient and to be charitable. And when they started to make a little cash, they did something else. They started to buy up the bars in the area, and they began to serve their beer under their own brand through their own bars. Then they started to develop a few other income streams. Not long after the brewery began, the monks began to contract brew for other private labels. So other beer companies would pay them to brew their beer. Then in 1950, they established a lemonade factory. Then they opened a tasting room, a restaurant, a gift shop, started tours, and so on. You get the idea. 130 years later, the brewery is still run by the monks who continue to follow the age-old methods of the original Trappists that started it. And despite all the noise of the modern world, 130 years later, they are still producing income to support their own organisation as well as a long list of other great causes around the world. So the noise and the clutter doesn't touch them because they have something of value that people want. They know how to make it. They know how to position it. They know how to distribute it, and they know how to sell it. Let me repeat that. The noise and clutter doesn't touch them because they have something of value that they know people want. And they know how to make it, position it, distribute it, and sell it. And they use sustainable methods in production. They've planted a forest. They've won sustainable awards, and the story just goes on and on and on. Pretty inspiring stuff, actually. And they've been doing it for 130 years. And out of interest, here's some of the beers that they brew. It's very well done on every level. If you like beer or you want to try beer, I encourage you at some point in time, try one of these. They're really well-made beer. But here's what inspires me about these guys. Firstly, they were creative. They thought differently. They thought outside the box, and they created new sustainable solutions to fundraising. And not only did they think differently, but they used what they had. They used their knowledge and their skills and the resources they had. They looked at what they had in their arm's reach, what they had in their hands, and they used it for a monastery, but also as a brewery, as a way to fund their own ministry, their own organisation, but also good non-profit ventures happening around them to be charitable. And they were sitting on a mountain of value, and they found it and they turned it into an income source that was directly related to commercial activity. And so rather than appeal only to people's philanthropic impulses, they appeal to people's consumer impulses, the desire to buy things. Now that's really smart. So rather than appealing only to people's philanthropic impulses, they appeal to people's consumer impulses, their desire to buy things. So with that as the story, that is the platform, that is the example, I want to just explore 4 ideas for earned income ventures, a commercial approach to income generation for nonprofits. Now, I've talked a lot about these things with nonprofits in the past. I've never put them all together and presented them like this. So this is the first. Whether it's a good thing for you or a bad thing, I don't know. But I'm presenting these things together for the first time because I think it's timely, very, very important that nonprofits think creatively about where their income comes from. Now, there's a few things in here that could be a bit controversial, but that's what you need to work out in your own organisation, how you proceed with some of these ideas. So I'm just sharing them, and you do with them what you will. So basically, what we are talking about is an earned income venture of some sort, where an organisation operates commercially by selling a product or a service. Now, this is nothing new. Non-profits have been doing this for hundreds of years, and a lot of non-profits do this really, really well. So all I aim to do here is to encourage non-profits to get strategic and imaginative in this area and start to innovate and create new income streams that are hopefully more sustainable and more diverse. And it's on the rise, which is encouraging. In 2012, Deloitte reported that about 36% of non-profit resources in Australia came from some form of commercial activity. Retail outlets such as recycled fashion and homewares. Now, the Salvation Army, with their huge network of second-hand stores and significant income from these stores, most likely gives a perception that there are more non-profits raising funds in this way, but 36% is still pretty encouraging. I'll give you an example. The Salvation Army, through their second-hand stores in the financial year 2012-2013, generated $96 million from 210 stores. So that kind of figure, $96 million in 1 year, puts that 36% figure out a little bit, where it gives us the perception that more non-profits are doing it, but there's a few big non-profits doing this on big scale. So with that in mind, let me share with you 4 ideas of earned income ventures. Now, the first one is a commercial venture. And it's exactly that, a venture that actually earns a profit as part of its purposes. Now, this is where you really have to be careful. I don't recommend creating ventures that are just about making money. I recommend you strive to use these ventures as a way to also further your cause. So let's go back to the beer brewing example for a moment. What does beer brewing have to do with the calling of a monastery? On the surface, it may seem like just a money-making venture, but it has a lot to do actually with their primary vocation. Under the surface, there's a strong historical connection with their values and their vocation. The monastery essentially is about deepening the spirituality and connection of individuals and communities, as well as acting in charity. That's like the core purpose for this monastery. Beer brewing, on the other hand, historically was about providing a beverage reasonably low in alcohol that could be enjoyed and used in the process of building community. If you do a little research, you'll find a very strong connection between beer, the process of making beer and selling beer. There's a strong connection between that and strengthening of a community's conviviality through their regular community rhythms and especially through times of celebration. Now, as in all things, it can be used in ways that are not healthy, and all of us know and see that how beer and alcohol can be used in a way that's not healthy. But this example is not actually about beer. It's about finding something that your organization can do that generates an income that is directly connected to your purposes and your values. It's not just about making money. Here's a first-hand example that I've been a part of. In one nonprofit that I worked for, we ran an event venue. And we ran weekly events in order to build community and shape the local culture, which was at the heart of the reason that we existed as an organisation. So we set the venue up professionally. It was set up like a commercial cafe or a commercial bar, if you like. We had a liquor license. We had a food license. And we had professionally trained staff and volunteers. So whether the staff were paid or they were volunteering, they were all professionally trained, experienced people working in the hospitality industry. And weekly, we would have on Friday nights, Saturday nights, we would run bands. We had art exhibitions, philosophy forums, and so on. You get the idea. Now, making money was not our primary reason for running this venue. It was a place where we created a strong connection with the community. It was a place where we engaged the community in important and meaningful conversations. We also used the venue for our office, for staff and volunteer training, for community meetings, for other community organisations when they needed a venue to run something. But we also made a significant amount of money from this venue that was actually funneled back into our community programs, and we also donated some of that money to other community organisations. So this is just one example of how a commercial venture can work as a way to generate income for your nonprofit. So grab a few people in your organisation and start to dream it up, start to brainstorm and see what you might come up with if you're interested in a commercial venture. And if you need some help with this process, we have a service where we can help organisations go through this process to determine what and how they might do something like this. Now, I'll go through the next one and then I'll pause, and Karen might have a few questions that she might want to ask. So the next idea, directly connected to commercial ventures, is selling products. This is pretty much what it says it is. Find or make products that you believe people will want and sell them online or through physical shops. Again, make sure that whatever you sell, whatever products that you have a strong connection with the values and the purposes of your organisation. So let me give you an example. You've probably seen this website before. This is Charity Water. And they've got an excellent online store on their website. So this is just some of the things that they sell. So they've got t-shirts, they've got cards, jumpers, hoodies, wallets, phone cases, etc. And it's all done professionally. It's set up, it looks like a shop, it feels like a shop. The imagery is professional. The process when you buy something is simple and seamless and professional. It feels very, very competent. And what Charity Water do, I'm sure you probably know a lot about this organisation, is that every dollar that you give to the organisation goes directly to the cause, directly to water, whereas their commercial enterprises fund the whole operations of the organisation. So they can say 100% of your donations go to the actual cause because it does. Here's another example. If you click on a bike, they sell bikes. Now, they don't make the bikes. They don't actually sell them, but a partner sells them. So if you look at the wording there, their partner, Pure Fix Cycles, who exist in the same place where their offices exist. So $100 from the sale of each bike helps to fund their operating costs. And they've got two different colours of bikes, lots of different sizes. They're pretty hot right now. People are buying these fixed cycles. You see them all over the place. Very, very popular item, and they sell a lot of these things. So it's not just small items, it's big items. It's not just selling items themselves, they're selling items in partnership with another organisation, another business. Oxfam is another example. They have an online shop as well as 11 physical stores around Australia. I'm sure you've probably seen them and been into them, possibly even bought something from them. They've got a whole lot of stuff for sale. Home decor up the top, music and toys, kitchen, food and drink, fashion, books, cards, lots of stuff that they have. Now, there's lots of other examples, and I'm sure you're aware of examples of non-profits selling products, but not just in a little ad hoc way. The examples I've just given you are in a very, very strategic way, where they know exactly what they want to achieve out of it. Not here's a few things that we just gathered on our travels around the world. Here's some things we want to sell. Now, this is a very strategic, purposeful approach to selling products. Now, I know a few organisations, because of their connections overseas, they're importing coffee beans and they're selling them on, or they're roasting them and then selling them to their donor base and to cafes and restaurants. Another organisation I worked for designed and sold t-shirts and hats and jumpers and so on. And they sold them physically as well as online. And online made a lot more money for them than selling them physically. And for years, there was a steady flow of income from that one design that was applied to lots of different things. In fact, that was 11 years ago, and they're still selling the same product now 11 years later, it's still generating quite a bit of income for them. Again, if you need some help in this area, my colleagues and I can help you set up an online store, locate the right products, get it running properly on your website, go through the processes of how to do that. We can do that on your current site or on a new site. That's a service that we can offer as well. So I might just hand it over to Karen if she's got any questions so far and anything that I have presented.
Yeah, yeah. So you've presented us with two ideas so far, to set up a commercial venture or to sell products. And I guess I'm sitting here thinking from a non-profit's perspective that we all have limited resources and time and people. And so if we were going to try and choose between these two ideas, commercial venture or selling a product or series of products, how would we go about making the decision about which would be the better way for us to go?
Okay, that's a good question, Karen. I guess the first thing I'll do is the classic pros and cons. Look at the pros and cons of either or if you're going to do one of these. And I would look at firstly at the things that you've got, the resources you've got. Do you have buildings? Do you have equipment? What kinds of things do you have that actually could be used? But most likely on every case, running an online store or selling product in some shape or form is probably the easier thing to do and the thing that you can get quicker to market. It would probably cost less than a physical venue or some kind of physical enterprise. But having said that, I would look at the pros and cons of each one, what the your organization has, the resources that you've got, the strengths that you've got, and then think about how that connects with your organization and
Okay.
its purposes.
Hmm. So if we chose one, say whichever one really, I guess, one of the things that I imagine would be really easy to happen is that setting up the shop or setting up a commercial venture would end up having conflicting aims. So how do we make sure that whatever we do actually works for the venture, for the shop, or and also for the organisation?
Right. Yeah. Another good question, and I've seen a lot of organizations get this wrong because they essentially have one kind of plan, one document, one plan that guides both purposes. So
Mm,
my recommendation is to have two plans: a business plan that has business goals and make sure that is robust and works, and an organizational plan that's about the heart and the values and the purposes of the organization. Now, obviously, they've got to connect and have some synergy together, but they need to in and of themselves be two separate plans. You need for it to be
mm,
successful, you need to be successful as a business enterprise, and you need to be successful as a non-profit. And the closer they are tied together, the more sustainable I think these ventures are.
mm,
I would go through things as well to say, where are the risks? What's most valuable? What can you get to market the quickest? What's more unique? The cost of getting it to market, the likelihood of it actually
mm,
happening, or it's just going to be a pipe dream, and then alignment to the values and purposes of your organisation.
mm. Yeah. So say we've decided to set up an online shop like we're looking at here on the Oxfam shop. Would we just set it up on our own website, or is there benefit in having a separate dedicated website for the shop?
Uh, I mean, you could definitely do both. My encouragement would be you want to drive traffic to your website and you want to manage one thing, not two things. So, my encouragement would be to think about integrating an online store onto your website. Now, if you run a website on WordPress platform, that's pretty easy to do. There's some great applications that can help you with that. But there's applications for lots of other platforms as well. So you also look at the organizations that are doing this really, really well, like two examples I just showed you, and they're integrated onto their website. But when you do that, you want to make it professional. You want to make it feel like it's a shop, and the experience is the same as if they're buying it from another online store as a non-profit. They're not going to excuse poor processes because it's a non-profit.
Mm,
It has to be just as competent as if it was just a standalone business.
mm. Yeah, great. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on that?
No, I think that's it for those.
All right. Remember, if you do have questions, please type them out, and I will get to them towards the end of this presentation. So let me move on to the next point, which is cause-related commercial partnership. Now, you've probably heard quite a bit about this before. Um, cause partnerships, but they're based on the value that your organization can bring to a business's bottom line, their sales essentially. And this can be a very successful approach to income generation. And the beauty about these relationships is that it is not based on philanthropic dollars, which are small and variable. A cause partnership is incorporated into a company's marketing budget, which is significantly larger. That's where the heart of the business is, in their marketing and their brand strategy. So a cause partnership is essentially incorporated into a company's marketing, into their budget, and it's based on either a fee to use your brand, your non-profit logo and messaging, or a percentage of product sales. I've seen both work quite well. Now, this is a huge topic, a topic in and of itself that I can't really do justice here, but it's worth mentioning it and showing you a couple of examples. Now, before I get into some of those examples, in some research done, 50% of Australians say that if there are two similar products on the shelf, one has a visible association with a charity, that they will buy that one that has the association with a charity over the other because it provides trust and goodwill. Now, let me show you an example of that, and then you'll know that you've probably done the same thing. So you're thirsty and you want to buy a bottle of water. So which one do you buy? There's lots of choices now. In every place you go, there's 3 or 4 at least choices of water. Chances are you'll probably go for one of these, a Mount Franklin. And they've got a relationship, obviously, with the breast cancer awareness. This is a massive campaign. Now, uh, Mount Franklin pay a set fee to this nonprofit to be able to use this campaign, and it's massive. So whether you actually buy that bottled water or not, it makes no difference to the nonprofit because it's already been negotiated up front. But Mount Franklin know that it's a very good way for them to grow their sales. Uh, Kleenex and the guide dogs is another classic example. I'm not sure if they actually do this anymore, but for years and years and years, you will see those ads, and everywhere where Kleenex was, there was an association with the guide dogs. Now, they've still retained the puppy, as you can see there. This is an up to date example. I'm not sure if that relationship still exists though, but Kleenex have got a number of relationships with other non-profits where they do this. Coles and Salvation Army is another example. I'm sure you could think of lots. And it's not just the big non-profits that can do this, because you have a database, you have a distribution channel, you have communication channels, you have a reputation, you have loyalty and trust. No matter what size your organization, you have those things. You have a database, communication channels, distribution power, a reputation, loyalty, and trust. All these things are extremely valuable to companies, extremely valuable. So these partnerships have to be carefully chosen and negotiated. Many nonprofits are not partnership ready and are seen as a liability from a business's point of view rather than an asset. In order to be a partner, to be partner ready, there are a number of things that you can do, a number of things that businesses are going to want to know about and to be confirmed. And that is, they want you to have professional assets. They want you to look good, and they want you to make them look good. So your logo, your website, your social media, all that has to be pretty good, pretty top notch. It doesn't have to have massive following. It just has to be competent. They want to know if you've got a healthy database and a healthy infrastructure. Again, healthy doesn't mean big. Healthy means it's active, that it's not an old database of people from 15, 20 years ago, but it's regular, it's active, and it's growing. They want to know that you've got solid processes, and they want to know that you've got up-to-date statistics so you can show them the statistics of the effect of your work, the statistics of how many people visit your website, the statistics of of what you can do for them. Uh, and lastly, they want to have a clear pitch that you can explain very clearly what you do, the value you bring to your community, and the value that you can offer them. At the end of the day, it really comes down to the pitch. It's seriously all in the pitch. So there's some things that you can do. Have professional assets, have a healthy database, solid processes, up-to-date statistics, and a clear pitch. Karen, you've got a
So
question?
Darren, yeah, as a non-profit, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, there's a multitude of products and services out there that I could perhaps consider partnering with. How do you decide what sort of business to partner with? So, say for example, we were a health-related research centre looking for a partner. What sort of businesses? How do we start?
Well, you start by thinking about your key purposes and the values, um, what your organisation is all about. You might have a value proposition or a value statement. You start there. You think about the value that you bring and what businesses around might have a strong connection with that. I would think of um, your target audience, the audience that you've got, the eyeballs and the ears that you've got already, and what companies might be interested in expanding their reach amongst or deepening their reach amongst that. So, in your
Mm.
example of a
So
health,
our health
yeah.
centre
So
is sort of servicing a community. There's kids that are benefiting from it. It's research, trying to come up with solutions that will cure certain diseases. That sort of thing is what this non-profit does.
yeah, so I would start with thinking about those things that I mentioned before, and then it might lead you to a chain of gyms, for example. If it's about health and well-being, it might be a chain of gyms. It might be local doctors. It might be naturopaths. It might be medical centres. Whatever it might be,
Hmm.
just so they have to have like a synergy with the same values and the same target audience. It could be a manufacturer of sporting goods, or as we see here in this example, it could be a fast-moving commercial good such as
Hmm.
water.
Yep.
Does that answer the question?
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So looking at what the core values are and trying to connect that with a business in some way. It's sort of interesting though, because that example with Oxfam and the bikes, sort of not a whole lot of charity water and the bikes, not a whole lot of connection with water there. So it's sort of an interesting choice to sell bikes.
It is
I
an
guess that
interesting
was a local sort of connection that they had perhaps.
Yeah, it is an interesting choice. But you're probably right. It probably came out of a relationship. But
Mm.
if you look at the target audience for charity water, it's the hipsters.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the younger group of people who are interested in those kinds of causes, international things about water is a massive thing on on their
Yep.
radar, right? And these are the hipsters. You know the people I'm talking about, right? So
Yeah. Yep.
a bike, a fixed speed bike that looks as sexy as those bikes that you just saw,
Yeah.
is
Yep.
directly related to these people. They love that kind of stuff. So it's actually quite smart. And I know that they
Mm.
sell quite a few of those bikes.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that's helpful.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to the last one. Uh, I'll call this sponsor promotions. Now, uh, not a lot of nonprofits do this, but it can be a pretty easy way to generate uh, a little bit of extra funding. Now, you won't get a lot of money this way, but you'll get a lot of regular money this way, which can actually help significantly. Let me explain what a sponsor promotion is. Uh, you could do this on your website if you've got a reasonable website with regular traffic. Again, it doesn't have to be a lot of traffic, just consistent. This can be a really good option. So, firstly, you need to have Google Analytics set up on your website, so you can tell people, potential sponsors, about your statistics. How much traffic you get each day, each week, each month, and so on, how long they stay on the page, what pages they look at. If you've ever looked at Google Analytics, it tells you all about it. It's really quite simple. If you haven't got it set up on your website, you need to get that set up. You need to know what's going on behind the scenes on your website. So once you've got that, once you're across that, you get a designer and a web developer, or one or the other, or you might have both in your office, and you choose the places on your website that you will offer to sponsors. Now, don't go crazy, just a few well placed promotions is enough. Then create a prospectus that outlines the opportunity and the value. So, this is where the statistics come in from Google Analytics, and include some terms and conditions. Now, when you're putting all this together, make sure that you work with your accountant and your lawyer to set this up correctly. It's not rocket science, it's not a big deal, but just get your accountant and your lawyer involved to make sure that you're setting this up correctly. Then you want to establish a criteria for choosing who you invite to take up this offer. Now, it's really important that you're very specific about what companies that you choose. They, again, must relate to the values that you hold and be sympathetic to your cause. There's got to be a strong relationship and connection. And what this can look like is just like it's like an image or some kind of promotion that talks about that this organization is sponsored. So it's simple as sponsored by, with a nice image, a value statement from the organization, and a call to action, which usually is a link to their website. Very similar to an ad, basically. Um, so make sure that you control what the promotion looks like. So don't place any visual asset on your site that's not designed professionally and in line with your brand approach. So I would have a style guide to how this works. Stuff that you should already have in your organization. And also make sure you know how to track the statistics on the specific promotions with a good program. Google Analytics won't tell you this. You need a little program that sits on your website that tells you how many people press on it and where they go and so on. And if you're on WordPress, again, there's a little program called Ad Sanity. It's very cheap. It's a good option. It's called Ad Sanity, and it gives you all the statistics that you're after, and then you can feed that back to your sponsors. So, as I said, a simple example, a really nice image, sponsored by, with a value statement, the value that they bring as a business, with a call to action that links to their website. Now, I've got a client that has consistent medium volume website traffic, so it's a good option for a business wanting to increase their exposure. They don't have massive volume on their website, but they've got consistent traffic. They've established a strict criteria. The businesses have to be aligned in a number of ways to their organisation goals and values, and also to their constituents. Um, and they generate about 20% of their entire budget from some of these well-placed sponsored promotions. It can also be in kind. For example, the same organisation, I've arranged a relationship with a couple of local companies. One, for example, is a local print company. So the non-profit receives about $10,000 worth of printing for free each year, in exchange for them being a sponsor on their website. That's pretty good. You have enough of those, you're generating a significant amount of in-kind sponsorship or physical dollars coming through. You could apply the same principle to your email outs. So I'm imagining you've got a database and you're sending emails reasonably regularly out to your database. Well, this can be an attractive offer for some businesses if you've got a healthy database. Again, I'm not talking about massive. I'm talking about a healthy database that has good statistics. So your open rates are good. And they know it's not an old database, but one that's active and dynamic. Again, if you're going to do this with your emails, get a designer involved and decide where in your emails you're going to place your sponsored promotions. Now, I would advise only a few per email. Projects that I'm currently working on, we put one promotion on each email. You don't want it to feel salesy. You don't want to feel overrun by it, but one can work very, very well. So let me ask you these questions. Do you have consistent traffic on your website? Do you have a healthy database? If so, who would be interested in profiling their brand to your audience? Again, if you're going to do this, you need to make sure that you have a professional setup. It looks good, it feels good, it's got good processes, that you've got a professional visual identity. The website's professional. And you'd be surprised what you can do reasonably quickly, reasonably cheaply, to make it feel a lot more professional. If you're interested, shoot me an email and we can have a discussion about how you can do that.
So, Darren, this might be a very basic question, but can you explain the difference between a sponsor and a donor? Because I think maybe in some organisations these terms might be used a bit interchangeably. So, what's the difference here um, between sponsorship and our regular donors?
Okay, well, I mean, this is just how I'm applying a definition to this word. And I would assume a donor is individuals or an organisation, businesses that are giving money with no immediate return back to themselves. They're donating money to the organisation. They believe in the cause and they just want to donate money. A sponsor, the way I'm using the word, is a relationship that you have and that you develop or that you develop from scratch, where you're offering them value in return for the money that they're giving or the in-kind support that they're giving, like the examples with the printer or with a business wanting to expose their brand a little bit more to your constituents, your database. So a sponsor would be a value for value arrangement, immediate return to them in they get some value immediately. Again, this comes out of their marketing budgets, not their philanthropic budgets.
Mm.
It's a big difference.
So
Their marketing budgets are
it's yeah.
massive. Yeah.
Mm. It's sort of an interesting concept, isn't it? How do you go about? So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, we don't have any sponsors on the nonprofit that I'm associated with on the website. How do I put a value on that? Like, what sort of process would I go through trying to work out what sort of proposal I might offer someone to sponsor?
Are you talking about in how much you can charge?
Yeah, yeah. How do I value that?
Well, you can do some research and look around at what other people are doing, and I guess how much it costs uh, to buy ad space. That's probably something that's quite similar. But in some ways, I would start conservatively and have it reasonably small prices, and then you can build up. So with one of the organisations I'm working at the moment, you either sign up for 3, 6, or 12 months. Right? You don't
Hmm.
want to sell space for any less than 3 months. It doesn't work out.
Mm.
And
Or
then
or permanently either. You don't want to be
no,
committed permanently to having it. Yeah. Yep.
No, you don't. So we started quite conservatively, but as I said, because we picked a few good spaces, and along with their email, they're generating 20% of their
Mm.
total budget. That's pretty significant. That
Yeah.
means that they can keep their website updated well. That means they can rebuild their website in a couple of years. That means that they can get a developer to make their website mobile responsive or whatever it might be. They can use it to develop that, or they can put that money wherever they need to in their organization.
Mm.
It's like it's money just sitting there waiting to be had, almost really. Um,
Mm. It's a bit of a paradigm shift, though, isn't it, for many small organisations to recognise that there is value sitting on their website that they can sell. It's not
and and their
something that is common.
and their email. I had
Yeah.
a meeting with a nonprofit not that long ago. I asked them about their email database and how much they use that. Their database was over 100,000 people. I said, "How often do you use it? How often do you communicate with them?" Oh, maybe 3 or 4 times a year. And I'm thinking 3 or 4 times you've got a database of 100,000 people. If that was a business, that's a gold mine, really. And with a nonprofit, you could be nurturing that relationship with those people for a long time. That like a lot of businesses would be interested. Of as long as they're aligned in their values and there's great alignment between the business, what they do, and what you do as a nonprofit. You know, be ethical with this, and that you got a lot of value sitting there. Nonprofits tend to have pretty decent databases. So website's great. Email can be even greater and can be more valuable.
Mm. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. And now this can get quite controversial. You mention this to people in your nonprofit, you're going to get very mixed responses. Very mixed
Mm.
responses. People think, oh, nonprofits can't sell ad space and all that. It becomes a controversial thing, but you need to work this through um, with your organisation and come up with options that suit who you are,
Mm.
and you need to get ownership,
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously,
And as
for
long as those
this.
values are aligned, yeah, and it's an organisation that you're happy to be associated with, then yeah, it's a win-win, really.
Right, and when you do this, businesses they operate professionally. They want professionalism. So feedback statistics to them in the processes. In make sure everything is as professional uh, as it can be. And I'm not meaning sleek. I'm meaning competent. And businesses that are aligned with non-profits that are competent in this way, they want to maintain a really good relationship. Businesses that are
Mm.
in relationship with non-profits that do this in a half-baked way, it never lasts.
So
So
I guess in some ways you can apply that, your question before, are you partner ready, to this concept as well? Are you sponsor
exactly.
ready? Can you operate like this? Yeah,
That's
great.
right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let me move on to the last question. What mountain of value are you sitting on? Yeah, what can your organization do? Are there products just waiting to be developed? Do you do something really well that you could distill into an online manual and sell, or some training? Another organization I've worked for turned a lot of their processes, their documents, into helpful manuals for other organizations to buy. So they generated quite a bit of money that way. So the question that you guys can ask yourselves, your own organizations, what mountain of value are you already actually sitting on that with a little bit of work, a little bit of imagination, you can actually turn into some really lucrative income streams for great causes? This is, at the end of the day, what it's all about. Generating income so you can do more great things with more resources, essentially. So, Karen,
So basically, this is about trying to work out what do we have in front of us that we could turn into a product or offer as a service that could generate some income. Is that
right?
basically what you're saying?
Yeah.
So
So,
how do we work that out? Like, some of our organisations have probably existed for quite a long time, and if we start, like going through files, and there's information overload. Like, how do we work out what's the
right. Yeah.
what's the value?
It's a really, really good question. And again, we have a service where we can help you start to mine the value that you might have in your organization. And it looks something like this: what resources do you have? So physical research could be buildings and equipment and that sort of thing. So we start to do a bit of an internal audit. What do you have that you've got that you don't use all the time that could be used, or who else could use those things? So start to look at your resources. Then second, start to look at your ideas and your intellectual property. So what information products could be made out of the the processes, the information, the intellectual property that you have? A lot of organizations do one thing really, really well that other organizations would benefit from. So what are you doing really, really well that could be turned into an information product that other people could buy online? Other organizations could be, buying and doing the same thing. Your ideas and your intellectual property could be turned into training or webinars like this. Run 5 webinars for free, record them, zip them up into a little program with a little bit of printed materials or whatever. Bang, you've got yourself a product, and you can be selling that to other organizations. Obviously, the content has to be pretty good and has to be pretty helpful to them. And the third thing I would look at, so the first thing I would look at, resources, the physical
Hmm.
resources you've got. The second would be your ideas, your intellectual property, the documents basically that you've got over the years. The third would be relationships. What
Mm.
relationships do you have with an individual or with a company that could be a lot more strategic than it is currently? Um, and how could that be, you know, worked and developed and nurtured for something that is going to be beneficial financially to
Mm.
your organization?
And then I guess, some of the criteria you were talking about before, when we're talking about how do you decide whether to set up a commercial venture or start selling product. Those criteria around how quick would it be to get it to market, how much might it cost to develop it into a product or a
That's right.
service.
Yeah, you've got
Some
to
of
go
those
through a
things.
process
Yeah.
of having a big chart, writing down the left hand side,
Mm.
a big whiteboard or whatever you've got, all the things that you think that you've got, or the value that you think you're sitting on, resources, ideas, relationships, etc. Then work out, where are the risks? So
Mm.
find what the least risky thing to do is. What's the most valuable thing you think you can do? What's the quickest thing you can get to market? What's unique? You don't want to flood
Mm.
the market, with something else, that's already flooded. You don't want to enter into a market space that there's, 1,000 different types of water you can buy. Uh,
Yeah.
Try to think of something unique. The cost it's going to cost you to actually get that ready to the market.
Mm.
The likelihood of you actually being able to do that, is it just going to be a pipe dream, or is it going to actually happen? And the alignment with your organization. So they're the kinds of
Mm.
things that I would look at.
Mm. Great.
Okay, so I'll just open up for questions. Anyone uh, want any
Well,
questions
one
or
question I
comments?
would have to sort of start off, I guess, if I'm sitting here listening to all of this and I'm not doing any of it, where would I start?
Right. Well, again, exactly the same answer to some of the things we've already been talking about. Um, grab that bit of paper, that whiteboard, or whatever it is, and start to list all the things down one side, all the things that you think that you've got that could be turned into a way of generating an income stream, and asking all those same kinds of questions, and then then picking the first, the top two or three things, and do a bit of development on that. That's what I would do. And obviously, you can't do it yourself. You need a group of people that are going to have the similar kind of passion. Um, so, with always, I'd try to sell the problem before the solution to people in your organization. Ask important questions, interesting questions. It's going to start to generate uh, people's imaginations a little bit about these things, and then start the conversation and see where that might lead.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so I'll hand it over if anyone else has got some questions. If you've got some questions, please type it away in that little box, and we'll just address those as they come in. Unless I've covered everything in pretty much detail, um, I can see a few people typing away. So I'll just wait for a few more minutes to see what people come up with. Any comments? Has this been helpful, interesting? What kind of things are buzzing around your mind, having listened to some of those ideas? Are these things doable for you? Okay, I must have either been abundantly clear. Um, okay, Kiki says, thank you. It was really, really informative. Do you have ideas for building an email list outside of normal networks? Yeah, definitely. This is one of the things that I work with quite a bit um, with some of the organisations and businesses that are our clients. Email is a science in and of itself, but one easy way to build an email list is to provide something of perceived high value for free in exchange with permission to email someone. So it could be a webinar such as this. All of you signed up, and in the process, you agreed to be part of a mailing list. So I will email you, not too much, but a couple of times a month, maybe, and I'll try to provide valuable things in those emails to nurture the relationship that we have. So that's one thing. I offered what they call a lead magnet, a webinar that you've joined it that you thought was valuable, and so you join that. Now you're part of my email list. Another way to do it would be, an information product that you have, a lead magnet. So they want that information product, 7 tips to social media marketing for nonprofits or whatever it might be. Bang on it, and you do that in exchange for an email. If you email me outside of this, I can work that process with you through a little bit. But it's a very, very good thing to do. Thanks for that question. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. Penny. Thanks, definitely doable, and your ideas have inspired us to be more imaginative in exploring additional funding streams. We appreciate you sharing your expertise in this area. Okay, so thanks, just a comment. Thank you for that. Another comment, great webinar, insightful and informative. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, if you think of any other questions, please, you can send me an email. info@thelearningcommunity.com.au, and we can get back to you that way. Now, this was recorded, and you will receive an email tomorrow with the link to that recording, and you can share it around your office for a little while. Um, and it'll be free on our website for a while as well. So, if there are no more questions, I will wrap it up. So I'll leave it for just a few more seconds if there's anyone else want to ask a question. All right, there's lots of people saying thank you. That was encouraging. Thank you, very helpful. Thanks, a very nice group of people we've got on board today, Karen. Very encouraging.
It is. Thanks, everyone. It's been lovely having you on board.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time, and I hope you have a good rest of the day and rest of the week. And just look out for our emails in the future and future webinars. So thanks for joining us, guys. I'll catch you later. See ya.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.